Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. And here they are, your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And thank you very much, Z-Man. And yes, it is Michael and Margaret Lyons. And you have to guess who's who. I know we try to do this every time when we begin the show, but if you guys want to comment, I think you can send messages either on the website. How does it go again, Scott?
I am so pathetic at my job. I might have to fire myself, folks. I'm supposed to tell you, as on most shows, that if you have a question or comment for the broadcast, send it to us at dj@artistfirst.com, and we'll read it on the air.
Awesome. And we will do it. We will read it on the air. You can send us anything, except it can't be profane or all the other things, or we won't read it on the air. So let's get that straight. In any case, tonight's show on The Soul of the Everyman, and I am Michael Lyons. I'm gonna self-identify. I self-identify as myself. Tonight's show, actually, that's kind of a good segue into the show, because tonight's show is going to be about the topic of focus and what, your individual or our, collectively individual focus is. Foci. Hi. Oh, my foci. Well, and in fact, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the exercises that Margaret used to do in working with some of the folks that she did with her shop, with the Rock and Gem shop, and when she was leading meditations. But it was really all about getting the people she was working with to understand what their focus was about, where they were coming from, so to speak, and whether their focus was entirely internal and self-referential, or whether it was more outwardly focused, more extrospective instead of introspective. Is that a word? Extrospective?
You just made it up.
You know what? But it's a darn good word, folks. And I think if you look it up, it's going to be right next to introspective. Anyway, so we did put up this. Go ahead.
That all starts because of the question on being able to de-stress. The world around them was making them so crazy that they wanted to be able to step away from it. And the understanding of trying to step away was the main problem. Because whatever it is you're focusing on is exactly what you're giving your energy to. And that's an external that's setting up a boundary, and you're giving control over to something outside of yourself in that respect. So what's making you do that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, and I think, we were talking a little bit about this before the show. We decided that, in essence, the overarching energy, so the overarching sort of surrounding this whole question is this idea of always being focused on the self, on the person, on yourself in particular. And it's the old joke, oh, look at me going on and on about me. What do you think about me? Because it's always all about me. And so we did put up a little graphic, and you'll see it up on the website if you guys go a little later. And it just is a sign. It says, warning, it's all about me. And the question for the show is do you need this sign? And I think we all know people who really, unfortunately or fortunately or whatever it is, do need that sign.
Right. And warning is not only for the person interacting with you, but for yourself. Because when everything is seen only from your own perspective, you stress because it's not working out right. Mm-hmm. It's like suddenly you have all the control And if it's not working out right, then it must be something that you're doing that's causing this. And so unhappiness suddenly occurs. And you're like, no, training your eyes to be able to see another person's perspective is something that, honestly, I don't always see that being shown or trained in young ones. You know, I mean, let's face it, children in general are very self-centered. It's the natural state of affairs. And you begin to expand your viewpoint when you're going through school, especially grammar school and high school. This is when relationships suddenly become more important, more real. You want to take steps in being able to maintain that. But has the person shifted their way of looking at things from what's happening to them and how it affects them and whether they like it or not, to what's going on with you? Now, how are you? What do you have to say? And I think we had mentioned this on a previous broadcast. Finding someone who is willing to have an open and honest conversation about a subject, not about themselves or how it affects or something is affecting them, but what's actually going on in front of them. It's a very rare thing. It's very precious. And it's core to understanding who you are as a human being. Because once you get to a point where you can see through another person's eyes, you begin to realize that there is a give and take, byplay and exchange of energy between you and the other person and you and the environment. Can you switch your eyes from you to the other and see where everything fits?
And there's so much good stuff in that we have to really just slow down and unpack it a little bit. I mean, you're absolutely right that the totally self-referential person judges everything by whether they like it or not. So good things are things I like, and bad things are things I don't like. But it's always, I like or I don't like. And then the other wonderful thing you said there was that the way that you interact is in a mode of not projecting yourself all the time, but actually listening. In other words, the act of moving your focus out from yourself is an act of opening yourself to listen, both to the environment and to the other people around you, and then understand that there is, imagine this, another viewpoint other than yours. Whoa, wait a minute, you're blowing my mind. No, you are completely harshing my mellow. This can't be happening. I mean, if I don't like it, I mean, no one likes it. If I don't. So this idea of just externalizing from yourself to you and the other is the foundation of civilization. It's the foundation of interaction. It's the foundation of relationship, and the converse, which is what you were talking about before, where you're completely always focused on yourself, leads to a kind of clinical narcissism, or the ability to deny the humanity of all others in relationship to your own. You are the dictator of the world as far as you're concerned. Everything and this goes not just everything around you, but everything in the world revolves around you.
And everything is measured against you.
Right, exactly.
Everything has to come up to you. Whatever standard you have decided is you. And what you decide is you is usually what's comfortable.
Right. Exactly. That's another great point is when your focus is all on you, it's all about what is comfortable for you. You never expand yourself beyond your comfort zone. And for growth, for any kind of growth, you must, as this time-worn phrase, a shop-worn phrase of going outside your comfort zone, but it's a truism, and it has a kernel of truth within it. New experience has to be welcomed. And if you're completely self-focused, and you've gotten to a point where your needs are being met, you can be very, very insular. It becomes your responsibility, or the responsibility of everybody else around you, is to make you comfortable,
happy,
and happy.
It's giving over your happiness to someone or something else, and that seems almost like contrary to this idea of being concerned about oneself. But that's the foundation of your process, then, that your happiness is only dependent on what someone else is doing. It's not an internal happiness emanating from you.
Exactly.
Where that kind of state of being cannot be disturbed by anything around it. Most people say, well, that's not possible. But that's only not possible when you continually look outside of yourself for happiness. And you're doing that when it's all about your comfort zone. When your comfort zone is key, it's an indicator that you've given the power of choosing to be happy over to something else, and it's not yours.
Right. It all becomes external. Mm-hmm. I'm not happy if everything that I need and want is given to me or provided to me. And so that self-focused also means that all things are going into this void, which is this self-focused person. It's a very inward focused and like a vacuum. And
very needy.
Very needy. But the converse, if you have internal happiness and discipline, you actually emanate that. You're right. You can't be disturbed from your happiness by external events or by what other people think about you or what's happening, because if I don't like it, it has to be bad. None of that matters when you're a grounded, not internally focused, but internally happy, internally content person. You have an emanation which stabilizes things, which actually which instead of being needy is being providing. It's actually,
yes.
You used to say that you would be grounding the people around you and keeping them from flying off into into whatever flights of fancy they were going to be in.
Yes.
Versus those who are very needy, everything around them is in constant flux because it's always got to meet my needs. It's always got to be, and it's always no grounding whatsoever is happening in that if you're in that state. Rather the opposite.
Right. You are blown here and there according to which way something is flowing, whether it's going, whatever it may be. You're just swept along, and you are not grounded into a state of being. And you have not the power to make your own decision on your happiness.
Your happiness is an incredibly fragile thing if you're in this state, because anything, a tire goes flat. It rained today. Something happened at work, and somebody said something mean to me, and all of a sudden, it's all disaster. It's all horrible. Everything is crashing down around me, and you see these people, especially, and this is sort of the disease of our time, the sort of the zeitgeist, if you will, especially on social media, because you see how many times you've been just cruising along on Facebook and someone will put up this, oh, woe is me, I had such a terrible, horrible thing happen to me, I don't even want to talk about it. Well, all they want to do is talk about it. And they want you to, they want their Greek chorus to pipe up and say, oh, please tell us, how can we help you? How can we make you happy again? This terrible sort of shadow play or passion play that they have erected in their heads, where their momentary, some momentary thing that kind of rocked their little boat or rocked their little world has to be of immense interest to everyone in the planet, and then everyone on the planet has to inquire about how can we help you feel better again,
Well, it's just it basically is this concept of, if you care about me, then you're going to listen to me and you're going to comfort me, so that my comfort zone is made whole again. And it's a very young way of interacting with your world. As a small child, you do not have the power to change things all the time. And you need to have that adult hand to guide you. But when you're old enough to take charge of things, do you really want to be in that childlike state where everything is done for you and all decisions are made for you? And most of the time it's like, oh, it's too hard. Oh, it's too hard. Like, life is hard, sweetheart. It is the way of things. Life is hard. No one was guaranteed that you'll be born into this life and everything is going to be taken care of for you. Easy was never part of the contract.
That's absolutely true. And I think that the worst part is the ones that are sort of in the middle, is they want to be self-determining and treated as a full adult one moment. But then if they stub their toe, they want the world to rush in like mommy and make them feel better. And it's this terrible kind of codependent type of relationship with their friends and family and loved ones, where they want to be in charge, but yet completely coddled whenever they feel like they need coddling.
And it's kind of funny because they also that feeling, there's a contempt almost for oneself, want to have that need. You're like, why am I always empty? Why is the world, whatever I do, it always turns to dust, or it's never satisfying my soul.
Right.
What is going on?
You get that lack.
That hole in your heart, and maybe that's the thing to come away from that experience, because you're here to experience things, but you've also got to realize that if you have that emptiness deep inside, you have to acknowledge that there is something that will be able to fill it. It's intuitive. It's at a core, at our core as human beings. You know that there's something out there that will lead to fullness. So, if everything that you've tried before hasn't filled it, don't go back to it to try to fill it and come up empty again, because that will lead to a depression. It's like, well, everything I do just brings me back to this empty state. Why live? kind of thing. Is that all this life is about? It's like, well, no. No, it's not. But you got to make the decision that you can't do it the way you've done it before. You've got to change something. And that's when the search starts. You've got to find a way outside of what you've been doing. You got to give permission to yourself. And that's scary for most people.
Yeah, well, I think we should back up, because that's where you started leading these sort of meditation groups, and in essence, the folks who were coming to you were sort of realizing at the very beginning of that journey, realizing that this sort of self-focused, everything is the warning, it's all about me, wasn't working for them, and they were searching, they were looking for something more, and so as a very beginning of this journey, the first step is to become aware of what it is that is creating this void, creating this sort of endless neediness. And I love what you would do to challenge them. I mean, you go through the exercise, you would bring these folks and just sit them down and say, okay.
Oh, well, many times people don't believe that they are self-focused. Okay, that's like, well, no, I take care of my significant other, and I'm thinking about my wife or my husband, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And you're sitting there going, okay, you can't perceive that everything you're doing is through your own viewpoint. It's not through their viewpoint, it's yours. And it's like, well, they can't grasp it. So the exercise was, you must go through the next 4 days without using the pronoun I. Because your language is an indicator of where your focus is, or where you are operating from. It is the base from which you operate from. And as you speak, it indicates where that flow is coming from. So not using the pronoun I was their task. And it was fascinating because I had a couple of people who would look at that, and they literally, for like 10 minutes, couldn't form a sentence to ask me a question. I do remember one question they did ask was like, could I use the pronoun me?
Nope.
No. No.
And I just remember you telling me about this. I wasn't present for any of these, but just you said these people would sit there just mute. They'd begin a sentence, and just couldn't even begin a sentence without the very first word or the second being I. And you said you're forbidden to use the personal pronoun I or me, and it would just.
They became mute for a while, yes.
Right, and then the wonderful thing would be is you look at them and say, your focus is yourself. Is everything you say, nearly every word out of your mouth, every thought that you're trying to express is about how it relates to the I. And it was just, it would floor these people, and some of them got frustrated and didn't want to go further, and they weren't ready to go any further.
Yeah, no, this is not, they're just saying, oh, well, that's just a trick, or it's a, it's like, look, it's up to you. I'm making the suggestion. I would highly recommend you do that.
Right.
Do it for a week.
Right.
See what happens.
And some of them really couldn't make it through 10 minutes or 15 minutes. and it it's the word I is really not the problem. The word I is a perfectly good word. You can use it in any context, but the exercise was to get them to understand that their whole mode of expressing themselves, every opinion that they were trying to express, every thought, every next action or previous action or anything that they wanted to do was all focused on them. They couldn't speak without being self-referential. The word is fine. Me and I and all those things are fine. But when
that was the thing. You asked the question, how can I take steps into a more compassionate, kind consciousness? Like, well, you're going to have to let go of you and only your viewpoint. Oh no, and that was the fascinating thing. They didn't really believe that they were self-focused. It's just, no, that's just the way the world is, and it's this and it's that, and it affects me this way. If it's affecting me this way, it's got to be affecting everybody else this way.
Right.
And you sit there and you go, no.
No, and really, getting to that point with these folks would, for some of them, it really gave them something to think about. They really thought and said, you know what? If they were on the verge and they really were seeking and they really had sort of an open mind about it, they'd say, you know what? I really am focused on me, on that all my conversation is about me. So therefore, after a while, people get tired of hearing about me.
Oh no, no.
Oh,
I'm
no.
the most interesting person. Don't you understand?
I am the most interesting person I know. Don't you think so?
And the truth is, it's only when you feel that emptiness or hollowness does it become an indicator for an individual that something is missing. And do you really want to take the steps on the journey to find what it is that's missing? Or are you only happy complaining about what's not there and no one gave you? Was that the line that you want to stop at? It's your free will. If that's what you want to do. That's fine. Some people are just not ready to take the next step. They're much more comfortable in the little world that was made, and they just want you to come and pat them on the head and say, oh, you're doing such a good job. That's all they want.
Yes.
I'm looking for someone who's going to mirror back to me who I am. And it's not a true mirror.
True. And since speaking of going back and mirroring, we're going to go back and mirror ourselves into the studio for a little commercial break. But when we come back out of the commercial break, I'm going to throw in another word on top of the I. It's going to be the I know.
Oh, dear.
We'll be right back.
When tornadoes raked the South, it was ham radio that was on the air, saving lives. As communities lay in ruins, it was the hams who let their families know their loved ones were safe. When the power and cell phones went out, the hams were there, helping rescuers get the message through. Wherever catastrophes strike, amateur radio is ready. Amateur radio works when other communications don't. Contact the ARRL, the National Association for Amateur Radio, on the web at emergencyradio.org. That's emergencyradio.org.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, my name is Christina Garlick, and my new book, Nevada Rain, is now available. It's a sci-fi fantasy story for ages 14 and up. I hope you check it out, and of course enjoy. Also, you're listening to the ArtistFirst radio network that has a station for everyone.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Hi, this is June Trope. Check out my new book, The Deadliest Sport, available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. And please visit my website, junetrope.com. And you are listening to the Artist First Radio Network.
Listening to the Soul of the Everyman on the Artist First Radio Network. Let's get back to your hosts. It's Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And thank you very much, Z-Man. And yes, you are listening to the Soul of the Everyman show, and this is our second half hour. And tonight's show is basically about understanding your focus. And we've been talking the last half hour about both folks we all know who are very self-focused, and that's the graphic. If you go to the website, you'll see is this warning. It's all about me. And we ended the last half hour talking about basically folks who were given an exercise that they would not be able to use the personal pronoun. They were not able to use I or me in their conversation. And some folks became almost mute because they couldn't start a conversation without the words I or me in them. And we said, going to the break, that we would talk about the second word in the I constellation, which is the I know. But we were just informed that we had an email come in, so we're actually gonna read that on the air and see if we can, if that adds to the conversation. So if you wouldn't mind, Scott.
I'm sorry, my eyes are still watering from the picture.
Oh.
I can read it
no pictures, people.
With one eye. It's been there for many years. This comes to us from Lynette 313, and Lynette writes, I live with and take care of my elderly parents, both in their 80s. I am committed to being there for them. Also, I have a longtime boyfriend who is not in good health lately and whose remaining years may be a lot fewer than we had hoped. I must face the possibility that life with my boyfriend and I want to start eventually. I'm sorry, let me start that over. I must face the possibility that the life my boyfriend and I want to start eventually may never happen. Quote, my time, unquote, may have run out.
Well, I see. That is a certainly an interesting email. I'm not sure if it's on our topic, but thank you for listening, certainly, Lynette. And taking care of one's parents is certainly not a self-focused activity. It's very, very much the opposite. It's somebody who's already perhaps crossed over into that realm of giving, of being outside of oneself, outside of one's particular focus. So that certainly is a worthy endeavor.
But yeah, the concept of that your time is up is not, how do you say that? That is an internal regret. And the truth of the matter is, following what your heart is saying to you under any condition is the only way you are capable of not having a regret about something. And we cannot control what's happening, the environment that's around us. But we can choose our responses to what's happening around us. And choosing with your heart allows you not to live in regret.
Right, or fear.
Or fear.
Or fear.
And whatever comes to you, it's knowing that God has placed something in front of you. And whether or not you choose to engage in it is truly your free will.
Your decision, exactly.
It's your decision. And speaking for myself, I can only go with what my heart tells me, especially when it's in a relationship so close like that. And let your heart talk to you. You know, come to a peaceful point.
And certainly, when you're listening to your heart, that's the antithesis of being self-focused. The heart is never. If you're truly listening to the heart voice, you're listening to the voice which is selfless. It is certainly a way of emanating the balanced energy, the energy which is more concerned with what you can do for others rather than what they can do for you. But before we went to the bottom of the hour break, we mentioned that some folks who don't have that heart energy in their lives and aren't listening to their heart are oftentimes so self-focused they can't start a conversation without the personal pronoun. And as an exercise, Margaret had given them this task not to eschew the use of the personal pronoun for 4 days. Some couldn't make it through, well, really 4 minutes. And the other word, which is often sort of part and parcel and paired with folks who have a problem with the fact that they're very self-focused, is the way that they use the words "I know" to reject any sort of information that they don't like or that they don't want to hear about. The word "I know" or the words "I know" are often used to kind of say, "Oh yes, I know. You don't have to tell me. I know. And it's really just a wall, another wall, because I don't want to hear you. I want you to listen to me, and anything that you're saying that I don't want to hear, I say, well, I know all about it. You don't have to tell me." And that the combination of the I, the personal pronoun, focus on me, and the rejection of any new information by saying, well, I've already considered that, I understand that completely, I don't need anything from you, is again a way a wall to wall yourself and your I focusedness behind this wall of I know that no one can then get through. You can't even. Not only does everyone have to reinforce me, but any new information is rejected with the I know walls.
Well, the I know is also an ego thing. It's basically reinforcing your concept of your ego, because it's your ego that knows so much that it doesn't need any other information.
Right.
And your spirit, which is the very spark of your consciousness, goes past all that. Your ego is your
mental concept.
Well, it's your touch point, if you would, to be able to communicate with different people. It's sort of your outward persona. This is what you're presenting. But that's not completely who you are as a human being. You are so much more than ego. Ego has its place. You need an ego in this world. You can't get very much done without having an ego.
But the singular thing about an ego is the pronoun for the ego is I.
Yeah.
In all respects, it's always about I. And if you look at a lot of the Eastern philosophies, Buddhism and so on, the whole idea of that philosophy is the denial of self, is the rejection of the ego, is the externalization, is saying the I is decreased and focused more and more and more to get to the point where you no longer even consider yourself an I. You consider yourself a one with all. The idea of the ego as a touch point in that philosophy is exactly that. It's where you began, but it's not where you're supposed to stay.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And you're supposed to come back to a point in time and space. And that's where the I comes in. All right, this is your touch point. This is your ground. This is who you are in this moment in time.
Right.
Because when other things begin to intrude, it is easy for your focus to be pulled in many different directions simultaneously. And human beings in general, we were meant to do that singular focus one at a time, so that you can process things if you really wish to be conscious of it. But that singular experience is what leads you into that opening or flowering of the moment of now, that unfolding of the moment of now. That's core to it. And that the exercises usually that are given to you through, say, the meditations, Buddhist meditation especially, is to still that voice, the mental voice, or the emotional voice, just to still it. Doesn't mean that it stops, but it means that you are the third person observer, watching the thought or emotion rise up and then ebb away, like the motions of waves on an ocean. And it takes practice to be able to hold that third person consciousness, because everything around you wants you to engage in the outside world. Because that part of you that's engaging is just a part of you. And that part wants the focus, because that's where all the energy is coming from. When you focus on something, you are feeding energy into that particular piece, into that moment in time, and into that particular space. So your focus is a very important thing. Consciousness is a very important thing. That's why all these different parts of you are clamoring for attention. Because when they clamor for attention, they're calling for your conscious focus, and you begin to feed whatever that part is.
Right. And I think, and that's where we began this segment, was realizing that your focus, your awareness need not be self-referential. In other words, your awareness can be completely focused, completely aware, and yet not focused on self or on I, but the awareness of all, of everything around you, of the other, of,
I can't hear you.
One.
Okay.
Oh. It was probably, I was so focused that, sometimes, never mind, we're not going to go there. But in fact, the way of moving your focus away from an internal I, to really the external all. The observer is still a singular point. It is still, it can be considered the self, but it's the self not introspecting upon itself and talking to itself. It's the self receiving everything, seeing all things, realizing that it is a part of the all.
But in order to do that, you have to take a step away from always engaging from your own viewpoint.
Exactly.
And usually the exercise that is given is to concentrate on your breath, just breathing. And as you do that, your awareness shifts from what you're thinking about to the body function of breathing, the in and the out, and you're experiencing the flow of the breath, filling the lungs, entering the body and filling the lungs, and then holding it, and then exhaling slowly and feeling the exhalation. Just concentrating on that is the beginning of being able to hold your consciousness outside of the thinking part of you.
Right.
And one of the main reasons why it is so important to be able to begin to be able to shift your focus from the thinking part and reasoning and trying to work things out to being in a moment of breath, in a moment of now. And it's very, very relaxing, very peaceful, because the spin is no longer there. Mind spins. In fact, there's a distinct whirring sound that comes out of people.
Yeah, some of them are less oiled, have almost like like grinding sound. But the interesting thing about that whole exercise is that when you do still the mind, you're stilling it talking to itself, and the core of the self-referential ego is it talking to itself about what it needs and about what it thinks about what is happening. Oh, I like this, or I don't like that, or this is what I need, and this is it, and this person always does this, and this person does this, and it's always I. So that spin of the I talking to the I is that not awareness anymore, but completely self-focused unawareness. You're aware of nothing except yourself, and it's staying within the comfort zone and reinforcing that comfort zone with the I knows.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the ego talking to the I, which is a rather interesting concept.
Yes.
The ego talking to the I, and each one is trying to build up the other.
Right.
In this. So then you get this very tight little spin going on.
Right, and it becomes both a void, it becomes sort of an energy sapper, and it also becomes so terribly, folks who are that self-focused and that self-referential push away relationships because they give nothing and they take everything.
But that's the point. They need actually input from other people talking about them in order to survive. Because if there's no other input, it flushes itself down into this emptiness. And it's not a happy place to be when you're empty like that. And there's no grace coming in. There's no life. There's no light. You're more than what you think you are, and you're more than this concept of ego. So much more. We have a tendency to focus only on ego, like, amuse me. Show me how interesting your ego is, and then things have to be placed on a hierarchy at that point.
Right. Ego is all about lists and hierarchies and who's better than who and why aren't you talking about me? And the interesting thing about it, and you just mentioned, is that the self-focused ego runs out of energy, runs out of, if without input, without the external feeding into it, it runs into a blankness. And the only way to fill it is to turn it around and look outward, observe, and open the doors and let in. What is the basis of knowledge is the I don't know. Tell me. Let me learn. Let me experience. And those who are constantly answering every new situation with, wow, I didn't know that, or tell me, I want to know, versus the other, which is shutting it down as, oh, I know all about that. I don't need no more information. I have it all figured out. That becomes the void, and nothing gets in. No light, no sound, no new energy, and you just burn out, or you fade away, which is almost a song. Better to burn out than to fade away. But it's another subject entirely. But I'm squirrel. No. But outwardly focused people who are endlessly asking the universe, why? And I don't know. Let's find out. Let's try something new. Let's open up. Let's be aware of what's going on, and always wondering, what's the newest, greatest new thing that I can look outward and absorb and become part of?
The mental part of you, that mental aspect, of your consciousness, started out as curiosity. Right. The child is just want to know how it works, and it's always learning, and there's nothing wrong with learning all of that. But the minute it begins to put up, well, gee, I've got enough stuffed in this box of this particular subject. I'm filling it all up. I don't need any more information. And that's when they cap it with the, I know. This is the box I have. But the wonder of childhood, where you wake up and everything is so amazing, crisp and new. Do you want to embrace that again?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, you have to let go of wanting only this one box.
Right. And you also have to do another thing. You have to be courageous, because one thing a child is, all children are fearless. And we mentioned this several times before, but there's nothing more fearless in the world than a 2-year-old on a roof with a blanket, because they're going to fly, or they're going to find out why they can't. And of course, you have to stop them from killing themselves. But that attitude of fearlessness, of facing the unknown with curiosity and with courage, is the heart of changing your focus. The I focused is also a fearful focus. It's also a focus which is saying, if it's not about me, there's something wrong, and I have to be afraid. Oh, it's not about me. There must be something wrong. The externally focused, centered I, because there is still an I there, but it's externally focused, is courageous. It's tell me about you. Tell me about this. Tell me about the world. Tell me everything. Bring it all in. I'm curious. I want to know more. And I don't care that maybe I'll have to say I don't know, or maybe I'll have to fail, or maybe I'll have to fail and fail and fail and fail before I get something right, or before I learn something new. The courage is to accept the fact that you don't know. That's a courageous position. That the courage is to accept the fact that you might fail, because if you're self-referential, you're never going to fail, because any time you have any kind of lack, someone has to run in and throw another cookie in your mouth so you feel better. The courageous, risk failure, risk the embarrassment of not knowing, risk the possibility of rejection, but yet you're living. You're facing outward. You're going out into that wonderful place that is the universe all around you and the people all around you that are in that universe, and saying, "Teach me. How can I help you? How can we play in this wonderful universe? It isn't all just give me cookies and keep the light off."
Yeah, I'm hiding, or this is all I want to deal with right now. But yeah, to look at the world around you, say, there's something special that's going to happen today. I remember waking up that way. It's like, oh, can't wait to get out of bed. There's something wonderful waiting for me. I just have to get up and look at the day and something, it brings back a memory of, I had a little lady, a nanny, who we called her Nanny, but she was like a second mother to us. She was a little lady full of life, always full of life. And she would start the day by throwing the door open, screaming at the top of her lungs, "Hello, world!"
Yes, and that's the right attitude for life. And Nanny's attitude. I was privileged to know Nanny a little bit. You, of course, knew her from your early childhood. But that's exactly right. That the heart that is open and courageous is the heart that throws open the door every morning and says, "Hello, world. I'm here. Tell me something." And notice there's still an I there. There's still I'm here. Hello, world. It's me. I'm here. Personal pronoun, but you're not. It isn't you talking to you. It isn't you. It isn't the I of the the darkness. It's the I of the light. It's the I that looks outward and says, "I'm here. Let's play."
Yeah. Hello, world. Who wants to play?
Who wants to play? And and the happiness or the centered wholeness and wholesomeness of that. Yes, you could run into a problem. You could run into a challenge. You could fail at something. It doesn't matter. Your courage in your hands, with a heart for any fate, which is always a lovely phrase. You go out into the world and you say, I'm gonna do something cool today. And even if you don't, or even if it turns out badly, you wake up the next morning. I'm gonna do something cool.
I mean,
today.
it was such a interesting way of being, where it's like most mornings that was exactly what she would do. Throw the door open and just top of her lungs, "Hello, world." And as a teenager, I remember it's like, oh no.
Oh no, not again.
Oh no. And she'd throw the door open to your bedroom. Good morning.
Time to get up. Well, you know what it is? It's time to end our show. But you know what? This is a courageous thing we do every Tuesday night. So hello, world, and goodbye, world. We got to go. So this is Michael Lyons with Souls of the Everyman. Thank you for listening. And
I'm Margaret. And yes, have a good evening.